All right, welcome to the show, y'all. Welcome to the show. New year, new show. And boy, oh boy, do I have a video for you. Holy cow. Are you about to see some wild stuff? So in just a second, I have a Trump accuser who has a bone-chilling tell-all story that's going to leave you speechless and disgusted and feeling like you need to take a shower. But I have to play it for you. So I now have the full Katie Johnson video where she tells her story. For those of you who don't know, Katie Johnson, she was a 13-year-old at the time, and according to her, Trump sexually assaulted her, raped her. She was in that Epstein insider circle, and she has an absolute nightmare of a story. So I'm going to play that for you in just a second. It's a long one, but you should see the entire thing. We'll talk about that. Then after that, we'll get to some just disturbing numbers. Prices are now surging out of control, and Americans are revolting over the economy in free fall. We'll talk about that. We have a MAGA voter finally flipping and realizing the scam. And she talks about it on video, the things that got her to wake up and see the light. Now, what happened is she filed a lawsuit against both Trump and Epstein. And I believe it was in 2015 or 2016. And she told her whole story. She went on to drop the lawsuit. And there's speculation, hey, did she drop the lawsuit because she was threatened? Did she drop the lawsuit because she was paid to drop the lawsuit? Do they pay her behind the scenes to go away? Did they pay her an exorbitant amount of money, right? Is it both things? Was it like a carrot or the stick thing? Look, you'll either be in danger or you'll be rich. You choose. But, this isn't going to go any further. You're not actually going to go to court. You're not actually going to be able to, prove your case. But we do have this video. It's resurfaced. It's floating around on social media, and it is quite the eye-opener. So here is Katie Johnson, which, by the way, is an alias. She didn't use her real name. But this is Katie Johnson, who in 2015 and 2016 accused both Trump and Epstein of rape, sexual abuse. And here's what she has to say.
No, there was nothing promised to me for doing this interview. Excellent. Yes, everything that I say at this interview will be the truth. I met Donald Trump at some parties I attend that I was working for Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. There was about 3 or 4 times that I had encounters with Donald Trump. I was 13. The first time that I met Donald Trump was at a party at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. There was an orgy going on, and he was kind of watching off in the distance, and he basically asked if I could come over and give him a hand job. And at first, I wasn't very comfortable with it. This was like my first party, and I didn't think that was my responsibility. But my recruiter told me that I needed to do it, so I agreed to.
Now, notice the language. He said, "My recruiter." Further evidence, further reason to believe this was basically a human trafficking organization, right? Your recruiter? What does that mean, your recruiter? You're recruited into this lifestyle where you have to pleasure old men when you're underage. That's child sex trafficking is what that is.
And then he, I began to, sorry, this is a little difficult, but before I gave him a hand job, he kind of slapped my hand away and said, you need to use a glove. And the recruiter ran over and handed me a glove and said, no one touches Mr. Trump's penis without a glove. So I needed to use a glove. I gave him a hand job, and then immediately after, he had an orgasm, he left, and I didn't see him again at that party. Jeffrey Epstein is a billionaire friend of Donald Trump's that was responsible for throwing the sex parties. I originally came to New York trying to be a model, and in my travels, I met a girl named Tiffany there who was very interested in me and said that, that's what she did, is that she helped girls, get what they wanted, and she could help me get into modeling.
So remember, what she's saying here is, this also checks out, is that they're young models, teenage models. As I've been telling you for a long time, and there's plenty of reason to believe, Miss Teen USA and all these teenage modeling agencies. Trump had one, by the way. Friends with Jean-Luc Brunel and John Casablancas, notorious pedophiles. It was all a front for child sex trafficking.
She knew a lot of people that were higher ups, and that it would be no problem. And so that's why, but I would just basically have to come model at a couple of events and meet some people. There would be no sweat. So, of course I went, that sounded like no big deal. And she was recruiting the girls to come to these parties. And they all looked, most of them were, my age. There was, maybe a couple girls that were maybe 14 or 15, but it seemed to me like we were all very young, so.
So all underage. All of these girls underage at these sex parties. They literally can't consent. That legally they can't consent.
Okay. Jeffrey Epstein knew that I was 13 years old. When he interviewed me, he asked me to get down to my bra, just my panties, and I thought that was weird, but modeling, maybe it was something about my figure. And he asked that I give him a massage. And then he asked me my age. He asked me, and I told him, told him that I was 13. I told him why I was there, and he basically said, "Well, you'll do. I'm sure that you'll fit pretty nicely here." And then he tried to basically slip himself inside of me, and I pushed him away, and I said, I'm because at that point in time, I still believed that there was models, and then there was the girls that did that. Like I thought there was a separation. So I told him that I wasn't interested in that, but he said that I would do. And as far as Donald Trump, he knew that I was 13, and I believe that Tiffany told him. He seemed to take a liking to me because I was I was so young, and I was also a virgin. So I don't know. It seemed like he wasn't really into having girls that were liked by the other guys. He kind of, the whole glove. He kind of liked things to be his first. If that, for lack of a better term, but he was the one who wanted to get to a girl before everyone else did. Donald Trump knew that I was 13 because the first night that I was there, Tiffany actually suggested that, she had a whole bunch of different wigs, and I expressed interest in them. I always told her that I would love to walk around with blue hair, and so I tried some on, and there was a blonde wig that she said that looked great on me, so I wore that wig, and Donald Trump had specifically asked about me because I remind him of his daughter, and she said, well, she's 13 as well.
Oh my God, bro. So according to her, Donald Trump chose her at the age of 13 because she reminded him of his daughter. And she had her wear a blonde wig to look more like his daughter. Oh my God, bro. What? This man is a demon. This man is literal Satan. And he's the most powerful man on earth now.
So he knew the first time that he saw me, but he took a liking to me because I look like his daughter. Oh. The reason I'm coming out now is when it happened originally, I just wanted to forget about the whole incident. And when I saw that he was running for president, I felt that it was my responsibility to come out and tell our country what kind of man this person is. I don't think that he should even be the dog catcher, let alone running the greatest country in the world. After I met Tiffany at the bus station.
Oh, by the way, I should clarify. Tiffany is her recruiter. This is not referring to Tiffany, Trump's daughter. I just want to clarify that because I had that same question when I first watched it. She's not referring to that Tiffany.
After I met Tiffany at the bus station, she took me to, basically went to her house, her apartment, and got ready. I put on a blonde wig because it seemed fun to pretend to be someone different, but we went to the party that I was basically interviewing for, and Jeffrey Epstein was the one that was running the party. He had a quick meeting with everyone that was employed there, and then he had a private interview with me. The first time that I met Jeffrey Epstein, he did try to force himself inside of me without getting the go-ahead or anything, and then it was probably about the third or fourth party is when he basically forced. It was another massage, and it was basically like, it wasn't sex, but there was penetration, and I told him that I didn't want that, but he kind of got a little irritated. So I don't know. There was something about him that I guess I kind of held him I held a lot of resentment towards him. By that time that happened, I kind of already started catching on that maybe I wasn't there for modeling, and maybe I was just getting used for things, and I felt that kind of held him responsible. I did receive money to go to these parties. After every party, I was paid by Mr. Epstein.
So again, 13, 14, 15-year-olds and these older men have their way with them, and then they pay them as they leave.
Out of all the girls that were there with me, most of them were 13, 14. I think the oldest one might have been 16, just turned 16. And she'd been there for a while. It was Tiffany. He liked to watch other people have sex. I mean, he's a germ, doesn't like germs, so he, rather than partaking, he just watches. So Tiffany had informed him that I was the virgin, and so I was basically, so it was Tiffany who introduced us.
Okay.
The second time that I saw Mr. Trump was same scenario. He was onlooking at an orgy, and Tiffany came over to me and said that Donald Trump had requested that I perform oral sex on him, and I'd never done something like that with anybody, so I was a little nervous. So I walked up to him, and he was sitting there very proud, and I just kind of moved in that direction, and he kind of slapped me away and said, "What are you doing? You need to put a condom on," like I was some dirty filth or something without a condom. Tiffany ran over and handed him a condom and apologized, profusely, and said that would never happen again. And she looked at me and scolded me basically like a child and said that that's not how Donald Trump always anytime you touch his penis, it needs to have a condom on or a glove, and especially when it comes to performing oral sex. So I apologized, and then I performed oral sex on him, and once he was done, he hopped up, and that's the last I saw of him at that party. It's like once he's done, he's out. So
okay.
Sometimes before the... So according to these allegations, not only is he a pedophile and a rapist, but he's also an abuser as well.
Some of the things that I noticed that were weird with him was sometimes before the parties he would come over and Jeffrey Epstein and himself would kind of banter back and forth, and he was Donald Trump was very racist. He said a lot of racist things. Like there was a lot of comments towards Mr. Epstein about being Jewish. And called him a Jew bastard, so that he was cheap. And there were some words I didn't even understand. Something about the shape of his penis being directly related to his mole. Or I'm not too familiar with the Jewish tradition. So, but I'm pretty sure that whatever he was saying wasn't very nice.
By the way, there's been repeated references to Epstein's dick being shaped very bizarre, being shaped very weird. What was it? Somebody referred it like it looks like the shape of a lemon or something like that. So this is a theme that keeps popping up, that he had like a sort of a deformed dick, which, by the way, that Harvey Weinstein did too, and he's a notorious abuser. There's like a weird sort of connection here. Trump, Stormy Daniels was it, who said Trump has like a fucking little mushroom dick. I don't know. There appears to be this weird connection between penile issues and sexual criminality.
Also referred to, people of Hispanic or, Hispanic name, they called them spics. That was around the first time that the World Trade Center had gotten the bombed in the 90s. And he was, talking about the towel heads and how, we would just be better off if we, didn't let him in or, basically got rid of every single one that was already here. And I felt it made me really uncomfortable, really, really uncomfortable.
But by the way, there's not a single person watching this who's going, yeah, that doesn't sound like Trump. if there's any story she could have told that would have meshed perfectly with the guy that we know he is, this is it.
He also loved to call black people niggers, and Arabic people he called sand niggers. The only time that he tried to give me some money was our last encounter together, where he acted out a rape fantasy. Jesus I was forced to give that money back because Jeffrey Epstein paid us after the party. So, but he just gave me the money. I don't even know why he gave it to me. Maybe to make me feel more cheap. But it was it was a rape fantasy to him. But I wasn't playing. So.
Oh my God. According to her description here, yes, it is the case that Epstein was the CEO of Elite Pedophile Sex Crimes Incorporated, and he was the pimp. And so the fact that Trump paid her directly She said, no, they took that money back and he had to pay through Jeffrey Epstein, meaning he's taking a cut. So when you're going, well, I don't understand, where the fuck did all of Jeffrey Epstein's money come from? Well, we know he was connected to Les Wexner, the billionaire. We know he was involved not just with the CIA, he was almost a level above the CIA. Part of this like shadow government of, transnational billionaire criminals and their lackeys. And so in a sense, his wealth came from that. It came from his close ties to Les Wexner. It came from his close ties to intelligence communities. But also, he was basically an international elite pimp is what he was, according to this description.
There was those 2 times, and then there was after the next thing that Tiffany approached me with was that he had a fantasy where he walked in on his maids basically making out, and that it was some type of fantasy for him. So she asked, at that point I was like, I don't want to be involved with anything that has to do with him. But she's like, you were just basically the other one. So there's nothing that you will have to do. Just don't, he's requesting you to be involved. So I reluctantly, I felt like I didn't have a choice there. But it was basically, he's walking in, his 2 maids, I was one of the maids, I was the white maid. And there was a Spanish girl, Maria, who was the Hispanic maid. And we were making out, and he walks in and he gets really angry and threatens to call immigration on Maria if she doesn't come over and make things right and give him a blowjob. So while she is over there giving him a blowjob, I am just trying to, I'm supposed to look scared, like, oh no, and cleaning up things and pretending like I'm trying to go back to my job as a maid. And then he's being so rude to Maria. I felt so bad for her, even though I guess it just didn't seem like a fantasy. It didn't seem like it's the weirdest fantasy as far as that. He was threatening to call immigration on her, so that she didn't know how to, she wasn't even near going down to give him, perform oral sex on him before he slapped her away and said, what are you doing? You need to put a condom on, and she's trying to, I'm so sorry. And he's like, you can't even understand what you're saying, and just, speak English, you called her derogatory comments. And then he's like, you know what? You don't know what you're doing. Have her come over and show you how it's done. And so I said that I didn't, I had to go over there or else he was going to call immigration on Maria. I didn't know if it was true or not, but I felt that, he said that if I didn't show her how to perform oral sex on him, then he was going to call immigration on her and then get rid of us both. It was anything that was in relation to him getting off or being satisfied or happy had to do with him being in power, but extreme power. And
oh my God, that is way too on the nose. Holy shit. That's way too on the nose. It goes one way or the other way, right? Somebody who's like Trump wants to be, me, I'm big boss man, I make all the decisions. Somebody like that, it's either the case that they like to be extremely submissive, where, the dominatrix is shoving a fucking candle up their asshole and, whipping them and saying, like, who's my bitch? It's either that or it's exactly what she's describing, which is the opposite, which is like, no, he literally only gets off on power. He's got to be this, like, evil, disgusting, domineering character. And that's exactly, this all fits the profile fucking perfectly, bro.
It's very hard to even, it was always intimidating when he was like that. It was always, you didn't really know if it was true or, like, if you refused to play along, would he really call immigration on Maria? Would he really get rid of us both? And I didn't even want to know what that meant. I always didn't, it wasn't a game.
He literally does this. He plays these sorts of sick games too with everybody in his inner circle. He'll play power games and, do divide and conquer and play people off each other. And, it's a competition for who can kiss his ass the most. Like, all this fits.
It just felt like it wasn't a game. Yeah. The one night that I had the blonde wig on, he mentioned that I looked like, that I reminded him of his daughter. And actually the maid fantasy, I didn't have a blonde wig on. I was trying to stay away from blonde wigs at the time. But he actually told Tiffany that that's what he wanted me to wear. Like, he wanted it, and anytime I put it on, anytime I had it on and he'd see me, he would say, oh man, you look, and it wasn't like you remind me of my daughter. It was this sick, evil, like, you remind me of my daughter. It was just this weird pleasure, sick smile. Like, I don't even want to know what he was thinking about. I could imagine what he was thinking about. After the parties would end, we were to report to Mr. Epstein and basically tell him everything that happened, with who, what they liked, what they disliked, if there was any requests, if there was any talk about anything. That's what, we told Mr. Epstein everything. And then he paid us, and then we got to go home. And with me, I would either, I normally got taken to the airport, so to go back home. The fact that Trump has a chance to be the next president makes me feel disgusting inside.
Yeah, so again, let me just point out, this was in like 2015 or 2016. She waged the lawsuit. There were reports on it. And then she dropped the lawsuit. And people are like, well, was she threatened? Because Trump sort of had a history. And you could talk, Karen McDougal, Stormy Daniels, they have stories too where they felt threatened, right? So was she threatened to drop the lawsuit? Or was it the opposite, that it was like, hey, we'll pay you fucking 10 million DZACs to make this go away. Just don't say a fucking word from now until forever. We don't know. But, this testimony still stands. This testimony's still out there. It's amazing to me this has been floating around. I'm not sure I ever saw the thing in its totality. I'm not sure I ever saw the full thing. But now here it is. It resurfaced, and now's a better time than any to talk about this, especially with all the new revelations about just how much Trump is in the Epstein files. Trump is the #1 person referenced in Epstein's emails, 23,000 emails. He's referenced about 1,600 times, more than anybody else. And so we know how integral a part he was. He may be one of the fucking 10 co-conspirators with Epstein's Fredophilia ring. Like one of the people who was running it, right? And so now's a better time than any to go back to this.
I've always been proud to be an American. I think we live in a beautiful country. But I just see him ruining everything. You
say that again.
A horrible. What he portrays on the outside isn't even that great, but people don't even know the half of how evil, how sick and twisted that man is. I have a friend that's been my friend ever since the school year that I stopped going, the 8th grade. I confided her, and she knows all about it. She knows everything. I mean, I destroyed everything of any planes. I couldn't risk my dad finding out. And now I think I'm old enough to where at that point I didn't want to not be his little girl. I didn't want to lose my dad.
Which begs the question, how many other people like Katie Johnson are out there? How many other girls went through a very similar thing who are just not saying anything because they don't want to bring up old trauma from the past. They don't want to, have to tell the family something that they want to keep quiet. They don't want to ruin their current relationships. They don't want to reopen that can of worms. How many people just like her? I mean, we knew Epstein was caught with, what was it, like a dozen different passports of girls from Lithuania and Czechoslovakia and all these places. It's very clear what this was, guys. It's very clear what we're looking at.
Basically, I would never, as far as keeping proof of any of the trips, the only person, I never told my parents, there would be no happy, there would be no good outcome of telling my parents. They would have grounded me. I would have never been allowed out of the house. My father would have come unglued. I did tell a friend, she's still my best friend to this day. She knows everything. She knows it all. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to save the country that I believe that we have. I know what he does behind closed doors. If that's all, I'm willing to sacrifice my life to put our country back in the right, going maybe in some type of positive direction. Not even, there's no right or wrong, but a positive direction. This guy's not going to take us anywhere positive. As far as my life changing by coming out with this information, I've thought long and hard about whether or not I should, and I've gone back and forth. But
by the way, I also want to point out, with the dump of the new Epstein emails that we got from the Epstein estate, you had Epstein reacting to this in real time in the emails, where he said, well, if there's anybody who can make this go away, it's Trump. He said something like that. So he knew he was getting sued by her. This was a big deal to them.
But I think that I think that the American people need to know what kind of man this person is. And if my life changes because of that, then so be it. But the American people need to know what they're dealing with. If I had the chance to talk to Donald Trump, I would run the other way. I'm scared of him like I've never been scared of anything else in my entire life. I can't explain it to you, but the fear of him even being in the next room, I have panic attacks. The last encounter that I had with Donald Trump, Tiffany approached me about a rape scene that was supposed to be played out, and I didn't like the sound of that at all. But Tiffany promised, assured me that it wasn't going to be, if it was anything I wasn't comfortable with, we could stop. That she would be right there, and that it wouldn't get out of hand, and that it was a fantasy, like it wasn't really going to happen. And so I told her that I would. She basically, Tiffany was always nice to me. She wasn't that I trusted her, else and I wouldn't always trusted her, or done what she asked me to. But she was there, and he came in, and I was basically tied to a bed with pantyhose, and he tied him. They were so tight, it hurt to even lay there. And I tried to say something, and it was like, he just, shut up, shut up, bitch. It was basically like he was being really, really rough. And I understand. It just didn't seem like a fantasy. And I started to get scared, and he was, basically ripping my clothes off, and I was actually I got freaked out. I told him that I didn't want to do this. I screamed over for Tiffany, and she was like, Mr. Trump, she's only, this is scaring her. And he's like, oh, you shut up too. He just turned into this animal. It was like a completely different person. It was like everyone in the room was scared of him. And it was like I couldn't do anything about it. And he ripped off all my clothes, and he started to basically have sex with me, and I was screaming because I had never had sex before. It was my first time, and Tiffany was yelling at him too. She was saying I was a virgin, and he told us to just shut the fuck up, and just basically took my virginity while I was crying and telling him to stop. And that's basically begging for him to just stop. And Tiffany didn't know what else to do either. No one was there to help us, or me. And so after the fact, he basically finishes it. It didn't take that long at all. But it was just, it felt like it was like 5.5 hours. It felt like it was an eternity. I don't even know how long it was, but he was done, and I was crying, and Tiffany was consulting me, and she was, apologizing. She told me that she just never put me in that situation again. But he comes over mad because I was crying, and he said that I should be thankful that someone like Donald Trump took my virginity. He basically didn't say took my virginity. He said I should be glad that someone like Donald Trump popped my cherry, and not some pimply little 14-year-old. And I just was like, what if I said, what if I get pregnant? Not even talking to him. I didn't want to talk to him. I was talking to Tiffany. And he said, well, you'll get an abortion then, bitch. And then just walked away. And I went out. I told Tiffany I needed to go home. I never went back again.
Jesus Christ.
I guess it's for you to decide, if I don't have any kids myself, because I'm afraid to have kids, because who knows what kind of damage they can get into. But if you have a 13-year-old daughter, and would you be okay with the person who's running our country doing that to your little girl? And I don't know. I just want people to know. I think that I have a faith in our society that we'll make the right choice.
Oh man.
He seemed to be taking great pleasure in dominance and control, and just the more I screamed, the more I got scared, the more he was enraged and enraged with power, and it was like he was just charged with it. It was scary. My experience with Donald Trump has made it to where I can't be in a healthy relationship, much less I can't be in a relationship without myself sabotaging it. I don't do well. I've been in a couple of relationships. They're never of interest to me normally, but one in particular that was he was a wonderful man, and I completely knowing I had like subconsciously, I couldn't even control myself. It was like I had to get him out of my life because, you know, I don't know why. It was like anytime anyone loves me, I don't feel worth it, or, you know, I don't even know how to explain it. Like I can't. Friends, I can have acquaintances that, you know, guys that are acquaintances, but I just, you know, anytime it's maybe someone expressed anything else besides that, I can't. I take some type of pleasure, I don't take pleasure in it, but subconsciously, whether I mean to or not, sometimes I've meant to. It's like I've purposely hurt their feelings just so they'll never talk to me again. Like I make sure that it's not ever a possibility. Donald Trump destroyed my feeling of self-worth and my self-esteem when it was still growing, like when it just bloomed. It hadn't even had a chance to experience anything. I have only spoken to one therapist about this just recently, actually. For a long time, I really tried to forget about it. Just tried very hard. But I've been to counseling for other things, and I went to counseling for the previous relationship that I was sabotaging, and my counselor said, something has happened to you where you need to deal with that. That's actually what kind of was like, He knew that there was something that had happened where I was sabotaging these relationships, but, you know, he said that it was my responsibility to deal with it, of course. This situation with Donald Trump has destroyed my self-esteem, and it's made it to where I feel like it's destroyed part of my life. The only healthy relationship I've completely demolished. And I love to choose the dysfunctional ones that I know I can just push away. After what happened with him, I can't trust a man ever again. Thinking about it just makes me sick to my stomach. So when something so traumatic happens to someone that's so young, you never, ever really get over it.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why he's tried so hard to block the release of the Epstein files. It's about protecting his own ass. It's about protecting the broader Epstein class, the billionaire fredophile cabal that he is a part of. He literally said to Marjorie Taylor Greene when she supported releasing them, he said, but you're going to hurt my friends. You're going to hurt my friends. He views the perpetrators like they're the victims. And he doesn't even pay any mind whatsoever to the victims, doesn't look at them as victims. He looked at them as fresh meat that he could fuck. That's what he saw them as. And so now you know, and with less than 1% of the actual Epstein files released, we already learned that the FBI was internally saying, hey man, heads up, Trump was on Epstein's plane way more than any of us ever realized. That was one of the things that we learned with 1% of the Epstein files released. We also learned, of course, that we have the limo driver in Dallas in that FBI intake form that said he heard Trump talking to a guy named Jeff on the phone, talking about abusing girls. That's a quote, abusing girls. We learned about a girl from Oklahoma who committed suicide after allegedly being raped by Trump. We learned that Epstein had a drawer which was just full of pictures of Trump. He had like a Trump dedicated drawer with other paperwork in there too, by the way. I'm curious what that other paperwork was. But when the FBI posted that, they realized it and it was spreading around like wildfire, so they went back and pulled it down. They pulled down 16 different pieces that they wanted to redact, but they didn't. By the way, all the redactions other than the victim stuff is completely and utterly illegal. And they've been breaking the law on seemingly a daily basis as well in order to try to cover their ass. We learned that Mar-a-Lago was subpoenaed in the Ghislaine investigation because we also learned from the Wall Street Journal that was Jeffrey Epstein's stomping ground where he would have Trump send him young girls from the spa and he would abuse them. That's what we learned. So the list goes on and on. I mean, I could go all day on the different stuff in the Epstein files, but now you know what a first-hand account is like from Katie Johnson, who accused Trump and Epstein of all sorts of crimes in 2016, withdrew the case. We don't know if she was paid off. We don't know if she was threatened. We don't know if it was the carrot or the stick approach. We don't know. But this testimony is out there. They've done an amazing job at hiding this. Donald Trump does not want you to see this video at all, by any stretch of the imagination. So it's on you to spread this far and wide. It's on you to get this out there, to show the true nature of this psychotic regime. But that is disturbing to say the least. And it's about time the truth come to light.